Hey y'all, my voice ain't fully recovered yet, but we got no time for that because we just got the latest ability and armor change preview from Bungie. Bungie has come right out and told us that there's one primary goal for this balance pass, which is beef up underused exotics. So good news if you're a D2 hipster that uses things that aren't top of the meta, because odds are your favorite toy is about to become better. And with that in mind, hunters, you are up first. Knucklehead Radar is getting all the benefits of the Faux Tracer exotic helmet and having it all added on top of what it already does, which is kind of wild, by the way, which is a clear, unquestionable buff to the Knucklehead Radar, but does leave the question, well, what the hell happens to Faux Tracer? In Season 22, it'll work like so. When you deal damage with one of your abilities, you gain a damage bonus with weapons that have damage types matching your subclass type. Additionally, when you defeat an enemy you've damaged with one of your abilities, either with another ability or with a weapon with a damage type matching your subclass type, you will spawn one of the collectible objects associated with your subclass. For example, an ionic trace, a void breach, etc. That change right there is automatically putting Faux Tracer at the top of my new PvE rotation next season for Hunter. And of course, depending on that weapon damage bonus number, could make Faux Tracer really interesting in PvP now too. Lucky Raspberry, which I haven't touched in forever. Instead of basing the grenade energy gains on those chains from your arc bolt grenades, each time you damage an enemy with the lightning strikes from the jolted condition, as well as each time you pick up an ionic trace, you'll get additional grenade energy. And if you think that might not be enough, on top of that, Bungie is giving the arc bolt grenade the intrinsic ability to stun overload champions. That seems like it could actually be a really interesting option for a chain lightning build, especially in any activity that might be overload champion heavy. Next, we got the renewal grasps. Bungie is straight up undoing the previous nerf of Duskfield grenade cooldowns when using this exotic. That is a short, small sentence that I think may shake up the meta more than people realize. Titans are still running rampant in PvP and barricade usage is high in game types like Trials. Duskfield grenades are a huge effective anti-barricade play, and with the renewal nerf being undone, you might see way more hunters out there in PvP trying to ice off Titans who barricade spam. If I'm being completely honest, that exotic might be my new go-to pick if I'm playing Hunter in Trials in Season 22. Moving on to Titans. Icefall Mantle, Doomfang Pauldron's Path of Burning Steps, and Eternal Warrior. Back in Season 21, Bungie changed up the Eternal Warrior and Path of Burning Steps, if you remember. They added an escalating damage bonus to arc and solar weapons, respectively, when you get kills with those damage types. They liked, apparently, that this gave players another way to get surge-like bonuses, but the Eternal Warrior seemed to have the most reliable way to get up to the Tier 4 damage bonus. Bungie is therefore making further changes to these perks to make them a little bit more reliable, while also expanding the functionality to 2 other exotics. Quick update for y'all. While making today's video, Bungie has tweeted out more exact information regarding these exotics, including what you'll need to do with each one to immediately gain the highest damage tier bonus. Icefall Mantle requires activating your class ability, Doomfang requires getting a void melee kill, Burning Steps requires you to get a solar grenade kill, and Eternal Warrior's weapon damage bonus is being extended to 30 seconds instead of 10. Feedback Fence. This exotic is apparently getting a complete rework and now ties into the armor charge system. Bungie's hoping that'll up the versatility factor and make it more useful in scenarios where you might not be taking a lot of melee damage. With the brand new exotic perk, when melee hits give you an armor charge, you take reduced melee damage while you have that armor charge. Taking melee damage will then cause you to emit a burst of damaging arc energy that jolts targets, consuming your armor charge and dealing more damage based on the number of stacks consumed. Hollow Fire Heart, which has been standing in the shadows of Hoyle, Heart of Inmost Light, for way too long, is up next. Bungie is removing the base energy to solar abilities and giving it a perk that will let you build more into sunspots. Oddly enough, Bungie doesn't really go into further detail except to say that we'll probably be seeing many more sunspots on the battlefield due to this change. The perk that greatly ups your ability regen rate when your super is fully charged is being left as is. And now Warlocks, your turn. Astrocyte Verse, which seems to be not getting a rework but a straight flat out buff. When you blink, enemies near you when you reappear will now be volatile. You can then leap away, triggering a series of explosions when you shoot them. Additionally, when using the Nova Warp Super, the Dark Blink ability no longer consumes super energy. Dear Lord. There's a few crazy people out there who have been diehard holding on to that Blink Warlock life. I'm fairly sure that all 12 of them are going to flip out with this change, because it actually does sound kind of cool. Depending on how near you have to be to enemies to make them volatile, I'm really actually tempted to put that on and go into PvP as a Voidlock for the first time in a while. Geomag Stabilizers. If you're like me, you may have panicked hearing those two words. Don't be. Bungie doesn't want to bring it back to what it used to be, aka a horribly annoying exotic with people running face first into the corner to top off their super. Instead, they're just making it so that picking up an ionic trace while wearing the exotic will grant additional super energy. I'm wondering how much super energy, so stay tuned on this exotic, y'all. I feel like there may be a lot of potential with this one. Wings of Sacred Dawn. In Season 22, each time you get a kill while ADSing in the air with a solar weapon, the wings will automatically reload your weapon from reserves. That sounds interesting, and Bungie even recommends trying it with Xenophage, and I don't really know if I want to burn power ammo ripping through ads forever, but it does sound fun. Next, Winter's Guile, which is getting kind of an interesting change. They're cutting out the old perk completely and giving it a new one that'll only work if you're playing Stasis. The new perk makes it so that if you freeze an enemy with your Penumbral melee ability, they'll automatically shatter after a short delay. I'm hoping that'll end up being more impressive than it sounds. If it has the ability to just straight up one-shot people in PvP, that'll be a mixture of entertaining and also horrifying. Moving on to abilities, where again, Bungie lays out their goals right away. Those goals are reducing the uptime and potency of Titan Barricade abilities, especially in high-level PvP, reduce the potency of Striker Titan in high-level PvP activities, both in the neutral game and when supers are up, correct the one-size-fits-all nature of Suspend, and rebalance our Strand Fragment suites to bring up some underperforming options and normalize the potency of overperformers. Let me say right off the bat, hallelujah. Don't get me wrong, I've been having fun abusing the Striker meta and blending in with the Punch Bro crowd lately, but I can openly admit that Barricade spam in high-level PvP is obnoxious, and Striker Titans have been eating really good lately. If you're a longtime Striker main, please know that you're an OG, and at the very least, you'll be able to reclaim the identity of your beloved class when all the posers like me move on. Bungie mentions that they tried fiddling with a couple different ways to make Barricade less dominant in PvP, but none of it was really shining the way they wanted it to in testing. The result? Towering Barricade's cooldown is jumping up from 48 to 70 seconds, and all Barricade health is dropping down from 600 to 500. In order to not upset the PvE crowd for a PvP nerf, DR against PvE combatants will go up to compensate. And now, the Striker Titan nerfs. Thunder Crash is getting its base cooldown time extended from 500 seconds to 556 seconds, matching the majority of the roaming super roster. Even though Thunder Crash is technically a one-and-done super, in practice its potential is closer to that of a roaming super, hence the change. Next, the one so many of us have seen coming, Knockout. Even though Striker is the up-close punch bro power fantasy, Bungie feels Knockout is currently way too forgiving, and it's honestly not hard to see why. In Season 22, Knockout's damage bonus against players is being reduced from 50 to 30, but they pledge to keep a close eye on whether that should remain for future adjustments. Now we come to Strand, and the obvious thing to put up on the chopping block, Suspend, which has become a go-to no drawback option for almost any PvE activity. Bungie compares Suspend to a skeleton key that solves problems against basically every combatant type. Here's the changes. Suspend's base duration against non-champion PvE enemies is going down from 8 to 5 seconds. Thread of Continuity now extends this duration to only 7 seconds. Formerly it was 12. Reduced base Suspend duration versus champions from 8 seconds to 3 seconds. 4 with Thread of Continuity. Increased snap damage dealt to Suspend boss combatants by 67%. A bunch of hard hits to Suspend right there, but I cannot say that I'm shocked. The Thread of Mind Fragment, which if you don't remember, gives you class ability when defeating suspended enemies. Reduced class energy gain based on the tier of the defeated target. Minor combatants reduced from 15 to 10%. Majors and players go down from 25 to 15%. Bosses, champions, and mini-bosses go down from 50 to 25%. The Thread of Generation Fragment, which if you don't remember, gives you grenade energy for dealing damage, damage, reduced the overall energy gain per damage event against PvE enemies by around 20%, rebalanced the energy gain multiplier across primary weapon archetypes. Bungie wants to bring the energy gains for dealing damage with precision weapons and fully automatic weapons closer together. Overall, they are reducing the efficiency of fully automatic primary weapons and upping the efficiency of precision primary weapons to compensate. If you're asking me, that last part seems like a pretty direct attempt to further water down the power of SMGs and other spray and pray weapons in the PvE sandbox, especially when tied to Strand. Again, heavy Strand changes, but considering how universally good Strand is in PvE, they don't really shock me. In a further attempt to coax players to try other things in the Strand kit not named Suspend, we have additional changes. Threadling damage against PvE combatants is going up 30%, which is actually kind of wild. Goddamn Warlock Worm build take the wheel in Season 22, apparently. Tangle creation cooldown time is being reduced from 15 to 12 seconds, and PvE enemies affected by Sever have their outgoing damage cut by 40% instead of 30. I will miss the one-size-fits-all power of Suspend, but actually kind of looking forward to using other features in the Strand kit and not feeling like I'm intentionally nerfing myself. More Strand stuff. The Hunter Strand Super, Silk Strike, is unforgiving, especially in PvP, where you often get brutalized before even getting close to the enemy, so Bungie is making these changes. Silk Strike's DR is going up from 40 to 45%, reduced suppression time between Silk Strike Super air attacks, reduced vertical lift provided by Silk Strike heavy air attack to reduce instances of missing the primary target. Overall, good news if you're a green Spider-Man cosplayer in PvP. Moving on to Threaded Spectre, aka the Hunter Strand aspect that leaves a Strand shadow clone on the field after you do a dodge. It's doing fine in PvP, which I believe, but they want to buff it in PvE. Here are the changes. Increased Threaded Spectre lifetime from 10 to 12 seconds, increased Spectre health versus PvE combatants, so it'll theoretically hold their attention for longer. Threaded Spectre now takes longer to detect nearby PvE combatants at the beginning of its lifetime. PvE combatants now more consistently focus on the Spectre instead of the Hunter, and allied players no longer have reticle magnetism towards the Threaded Spectre. Aside from that last one being a goddamn hilarious problem in general, that's overall good PvE changes. I don't know if it'll be enough to convince me to go full decoy jutsu in PvE, but we'll see. The Wanderer aspect for Warlocks, which makes it so that tangles you throw detonate into a suspending burst, is also getting changes. Bungie mentioned it often felt unsafe to run into the chaos of battle just to grab a tangle, so here's the new effect. Destroying a tangle now creates a delayed suspending detonation. Increased suspend detonation radius from 6 to 7 meters against enemies in PvE, and increased thrown Wanderer tangle detonation damage to match standard tangle detonations. Overall, I will take that. I love the Wanderer, but yeah, I don't like running around like a jerk into hot, dangerous situations. I would rather just shoot a tangle from cover. Bungie has heard a lot of feedback about the Strand grapple melee not working as players intended, especially for hunters and warlocks with ranged melee abilities. Now, grapple melee always takes priority when active, regardless of whether or not a target is within range. Again, because Bungie wants to entice people to use things in the Strand kit not named Suspend, even more changes on the way to certain fragments. Thread of Propagation now gives plus 10 strength. Thread of Continuity no longer has plus 10 strength. Thread of Wisdom no longer requires a precision kill to activate. That one in particular I'm kind of looking forward to. Thread of Isolation reduced the number of precision hits required to activate by an average of 30%. It'll vary depending on your weapon. Thread of Rebirth. The number of created threadlings now increases based on the tier of the defeated target. Minor combatants 1, elite combatants or players 2, boss champion or mini boss combatants 3. If this all seems really overwhelming, I will be live on launch day in Season 22 testing a ton of this out if you want to join me and our community on stream. I'll be completely honest, I'm very shocked that Antaeus wards are not mentioned in today's article. I know the whole point with exotics in today's article was to buff underperforming ones, but the community has been really vocal lately about Antaeus being too easy to use effectively in PvP. Maybe it'll get reworked in Season 22 at launch, but it just wasn't mentioned in the buff article today. Hashtag copium. Head on down to the comment section and let me know how you feel about these changes. Are there any you're looking forward to, or are there changes you think are general F-ups from Bungie that shouldn't have been done? Tell me what you have to say. I'll be reading them comments. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on stream tomorrow for the TWID waiting room.